Every summer, more than 4 million people drive through the gates of Yellowstone National Park, and almost every one of them believes they are entering the safest kind of wilderness there is. There are paved roads and boardwalks and ranger stations. There are gift shops selling stuffed bears and huckleberry taffy. There is a speed limit and a map and a schedule taped to a signboard telling you when Old Faithful will erupt, accurate to within 10 minutes. It feels curated. It feels managed. It feels like nature with the teeth filed down. In June of 2016, a 23-year-old man named Colin Scott walked off a boardwalk in the Norris Geyser Basin with his sister. They were looking for a place to soak, a wild hot spring away from the crowds, the kind of thing people post about. He leaned down over a pool to test the water with his hand. The ground gave, or his footing did, and he slipped in. His sister ran for help. By the time rescuers reached the pool, there was nothing they could do, and by the next morning, there was almost nothing left to recover. The water in that basin is not just hot. It is acidic, near boiling, and it had dissolved him. The official report used a phrase that no one who reads it ever forgets. In a matter of hours, the park had taken a healthy young man and left behind almost nothing at all. That pool is a short walk from a parking lot. It sits inside a park with an entrance fee and a visitor center and a junior ranger program, and it is one of 10,000 thermal features scattered across a landscape that is, underneath the trees and the elk and the postcard meadows, the caldera of one of the largest volcanic systems on Earth. This is the story of what Yellowstone actually is, why the most dangerous things in it are the ones that look the most harmless, and why the people it kills are almost never the reckless ones you would expect. Because the park does not need you to do anything crazy. It only needs you to believe, for one moment, that the boardwalk rules are suggestions, and every year somebody does. Start with the lie the place tells you, because it is the most convincing lie in the entire national park system. Yellowstone was the first national park in the world, established in 1872, and a century and a half of infrastructure has been laid over it since. The Grand Loop Road runs 142 miles in a figure 8 through the heart of it, connecting the geysers to the canyon, to the lake, to the wildlife of the valleys. You can see the greatest hits of the park without ever walking more than a few hundred yards from your car. The pullouts have interpretive signs. The thermal basins have boardwalks. The whole experience is engineered to feel like a drive-through museum. And here is what that engineering hides. The park covers 2.2 million acres, most of it roadless wilderness. The elevation of that road you are driving sits mostly above 7,000 feet, high enough that the weather can turn to snow in any month of the year, including July. Cell signal exists in a handful of developed areas and dies almost everywhere else. And the ground itself, the actual dirt under the boardwalks in the thermal basins, is in many places a thin mineral crust laid over scalding water, a crust that can be inches thick, a crust that has broken under people before. The signs say, "Stay on the boardwalk." What they mean is that the boardwalk is the only ground anyone can promise you is real. To understand why, you have to understand what you are standing on. Yellowstone sits on top of a volcanic hotspot, a plume of molten rock rising from deep in the earth. Around 640,000 years ago, that system erupted with a force almost impossible to describe, collapsing the land into a caldera roughly 30 by 45 miles across. Most of the central part of the park, the part you drive through, the part with the lake and the geysers, sits inside that collapsed crater. The magma has not gone anywhere. It sits miles below the surface, and its heat rises through the rock and meets groundwater, and the result is the largest collection of hydrothermal features on the planet. More than 10,000 of them. Geysers, hot springs, mud pots, steam vents. Half of all the geysers on Earth are in this one park. Now, before anyone panics, Be honest about the volcano itself, because the internet is not. Yellowstone is not about to erupt. The scientists who monitor it around the clock see no sign of that, and the odds of a catastrophic eruption in any given year are vanishingly small. The supervolcano is not what kills people at Yellowstone. It never has been. What kills people is the plumbing, the hot water that magma chamber drives to the surface, sitting in beautiful jewel-colored pools a few feet from a walking path at temperatures near the boiling point. Since the park opened, more than 20 people have died in Yellowstone's thermal features. Hundreds more have been burned, some catastrophically. And when you read through those cases, the way the park historian Lee Whittlesey did when he compiled a book called Death in Yellowstone, a pattern emerges that should make every driver on that loop road sit up straight. The victims were not, for the most part, daredevils. They were people who stepped off a path to take a photo, children who ran ahead, people who thought the water looked like a hot tub, people who saw something they loved go into the water and followed it. That last one has a name, and his story is the one the rangers still tell. In the summer of 1981, a 24-year-old man named David Kerwin was visiting the Fountain Paint Pot area with a friend. The friend's dog got loose, and it did the thing dogs do around water. It jumped in. The pool it jumped into was Celestine Pool, a hot spring at roughly 200 degrees. People nearby screamed at Kerwin not to go in. Witnesses heard him say the last thing he ever decided as a whole man. He said, "Like hell I won't." And he dove in, head first, into boiling water to save the dog. He got the dog partway out. It did not survive. Neither, in the end, did he. He climbed out of that pool with third-degree burns over 100% of his body. Another visitor tried to pull his shoes off, and his skin came off with them. He was blind by the time they got him to the road. Standing there, he reportedly said, "That was stupid." He died the next day. Sit with what that story actually is, because it is not a story about a foolish man. It is a story about a good one, a man whose instincts, loyalty, courage, the refusal to stand by, were exactly the instincts you would want in a friend. And the park took those instincts and used them as the murder weapon. That is what Yellowstone does that almost nowhere else in America does. It puts water that can kill you in seconds behind no barrier at all except a sign and a strip of wood, and it trusts your judgment. And your judgment evolved next to ponds and lakes and rivers, water that is cold, water that is safe, water you have jumped into 1,000 times. Nothing in the human brain is built for water that looks like a swimming pool and behaves like a deep fryer. And the water here is worse than hot. In the Norris Geyser Basin, where Colin Scott died, the springs are acidic on top of being near boiling, hot enough and corrosive enough that recovery teams have, more than once, found nothing to recover. In other basins, the water is alkaline and loaded with dissolved minerals. In all of them, the temperature a few feet down can be hotter than at the surface, and the depth is deceptive because the clarity of the water flattens it. Pools that look waist deep drop away 20 feet or more. The gorgeous blue color that draws every camera in the park is the color of water so hot that almost nothing can live in it. And the crust. This is the part that catches even careful people. Around every spring and geyser, minerals precipitate out of the water and build up the pale ground you see stretching between the features. That ground looks solid. It photographs solid. In places, it is a shell over a cavity of scalding water, and there is no way to tell the safe crust from the fatal crust by looking at it. That is the entire reason the boardwalks exist. They are not there to protect the park from you. They are there because the Park Service has spent 150 years finding out, one burned visitor at a time, exactly where a human being can stand. So that is the first Yellowstone, the one made of water. The second Yellowstone is made of muscle, and it is standing in the road. Every year, the animal that injures more visitors at Yellowstone than any other is not the grizzly bear, it is the bison. And every year, the reason is the same, and it is on video, and it still keeps happening. A bison bull can weigh 2,000 pounds. It can sprint at 30 miles an hour, roughly 3 times faster than you can run. It can pivot that entire mass in place like a cutting horse and put a horn through a human thigh with a flick of its head. And it spends its days doing something that reads, to the human eye, as an invitation. It grazes. It stands still. It lies down in the grass a few dozen feet from the road, placid as a dairy cow, while a line of cars pulls over and the doors open and the phones come out. The park's rule is simple. Stay at least 25 yards from bison and elk, and 100 yards from bears and wolves. And every summer, people walk to within 10 feet of a wild bull to get a photo, or put their child next to one, or turn their back on one for a selfie. Most of the time, nothing happens, and that is the trap, the same trap that runs through every dangerous place in this country. The animal tolerates it 1,000 times, and every tolerated approach teaches the next visitor that the warnings are for someone else. Then one day the bull has had enough, and there is no wind-up, no growl, no warning that a human would recognize. There is just 2,000 pounds moving faster than thought, and a person in the air. In a single recent summer, the park recorded goring after goring, visitors thrown, gored, trampled, in separate incidents weeks apart, almost all of them following the same script. The person got too close. The bison charged. The distance between a great vacation photo and a helicopter ride closed in under 2 seconds. The bears are a different kind of danger, rarer and darker. Yellowstone is one of the last strongholds of the grizzly in the lower 48, and in the entire history of the park, bears have killed only 8 people. You are, statistically, in far more danger from the hot springs, from the bison, from the road itself. But when it happens in a way that changes everyone who works the case. In August of 2015, an experienced hiker named Lance Crosby, a man who worked seasonally in the park and knew it well, went for a hike alone, off-trail, without bear spray, near Lake Village. A grizzly sow with cubs found him. Rangers found what she left. He had done 100 hikes like it. It took one. That is the arithmetic of this park, and it never changes. Experience buys you nothing here that the rules do not. The land does not check your resume. And then there is the water you would never suspect. The water that has quietly killed more people at Yellowstone than the hot springs and the bears combined. If you drive the loop road along the southeast side, you will run for miles along the shore of Yellowstone Lake. 136 square miles of high mountain water, blue and glittering, ringed by beaches. On a hot July afternoon, it looks like relief. The lake sits at 7,700 feet, and it is fed by snowmelt. And even in the heart of summer, its water hovers in the 40s. Fall out of a boat or a kayak into water that cold, and the cold does exactly what it does everywhere else. The gasp, the racing heart, the strength draining out of your arms and legs, while the shore stays exactly as far away as it was. Survival time in Yellowstone Lake, without protection, is measured in minutes, not hours. Drowning, when the full history of the park is tallied, stands among the leading causes of death here. Well over 100 people. most of them taken not by rapids or waterfalls, but by cold, calm, beautiful water on a sunny day. In a park famous for water that is too hot, the lake kills with water that is too cold, and both of them are wearing the same disguise, which is that they look wonderful. Now put yourself behind the wheel, because that is where most of your time in Yellowstone will actually be spent, and the road has its own list. The Grand Loop is narrow, winding, and old, laid out in an era of slower cars, and it carries modern summer traffic that would strain a suburban arterial. The most common cause of death at Yellowstone, decade over decade, is the same as almost everywhere else in this series. It is the vehicle. And the park adds its own ingredients. Wildlife crosses that road day and night, elk and bison stepping out of the trees into headlights, animals so large that hitting one at speed is not a fender bender, but a catastrophe for everyone involved. Bison on the pavement at night are nearly invisible. Dark bulk against dark road. No reflective eyes facing you. No warning at all until they fill the windshield. Then there are the animal jams. You will crest a hill in the Hayden Valley and find 40 cars stopped dead in both lanes because a bear is visible on a distant slope, doors open, people standing in the road with cameras, children loose between the bumpers, drivers hypnotized by a wolf on a ridgeline drift across the center line. Drivers staring at their first bison forget they are operating a machine. The scenery itself is a distraction engineered on a scale no phone can match, and the road gives you cliff edges, no shoulders, and oncoming RVs while it dazzles you, and the season is shorter than you think. This is high country. Snow can fall on the passes in June and again in August. A sunny afternoon at the lake can be a whiteout at Dunraven Pass an hour later. People drive in from the desert states in shorts and find winter waiting at 8,000 feet. Every year the park pulls stranded drivers off roads that were dry pavement that same morning. The altitude works on you too, quietly, thinning your air, dehydrating you faster, making the hike that would be easy at home into something that leaves visitors from sea level dizzy on a boardwalk in the sun. And through all of it runs the same thread that runs through the Mojave and the Dalton and Death Valley, the thread this channel keeps pulling because it keeps being the answer. When something goes wrong in Yellowstone, help is farther away than you think. The park is bigger than Delaware and Rhode Island combined. Cell coverage is a patchwork of small bubbles around the developed areas, and outside them, nothing. A medical emergency at a remote trailhead is not a phone call. It is a drive, sometimes a long one, to find a signal or a ranger, and then a response across mountain roads. And if the weather is down or the distance is wrong, the helicopter you are picturing does not come. People who have relied on instant rescue their entire lives stand in a parking lot at Yellowstone holding a phone with no bars, and they are, for the first time, genuinely on their own. The park does not advertise that. The gift shop does not sell it. But it is as true here as it is on any gravel road in Alaska. If you take nothing else from this, take the shape of who actually gets hurt here, because it is not who you think. It is not, by and large, the backcountry climbers and the winter mountaineers. They come prepared, because the park makes them file plans, and they know what they are walking into. The casualty list is ordinary people on ordinary days. A man who loved a dog, a young man who wanted to soak in wild water, a hiker who had done everything right for years and skipped the bear spray once, families who parked, walked 50 feet, and stood next to an animal the size of a car because it looked calm. Drivers who looked left at an elk for 3 seconds too long. Swimmers who trusted a blue lake in July. None of them woke up planning to gamble. The park never asked them to. It asked for one lapse, one step off the boards, one closed distance, one glance away from the road. And then it did what it has been doing since before there were roads here at all. It stayed exactly what it is, and let the mistake do the rest. Because that is the final thing to understand about Yellowstone. The thing the boardwalks and the taffy and the eruption schedule are all quietly working to make you forget. This place is not a park that contains some wilderness. It is a wilderness that tolerates a park. The pavement is a courtesy. The boardwalk is a truce. Underneath the whole arrangement is a caldera full of superheated water, 4,000 wild bison, several hundred grizzly bears, a lake cold enough to stop your heart, and 2 million acres that owe you absolutely nothing. The infrastructure is a promise made by people. The land never signed it. So if you are going, and you should go, because there is nowhere else like it on this planet, drive in knowing what you are actually driving into. Stay on the boardwalks, all the way, every time, no matter what fell in or what photo is waiting, one step off the wood, because the ground beside them is not ground. Keep the distances, 25 yards from the bison and the elk, 100 from the bears and the wolves, and understand that a calm animal is not a safe animal. It is a wild animal that is not decided yet. Carry bear spray on every trail and know how to use it before you need to. Treat the lake like the cold water hazard it is, not the beach it resembles. Slow down on that road, especially at dusk, especially at night, especially when the car in front of you stops for no reason you can see, because the reason usually weighs a ton. Check the weather at the passes, not the gates. Fill the tank. Tell someone your plan. And when the signal dies on your phone, let that be the moment you start paying more attention, not less, because you have just crossed the line into the part of America where you are the help. And when you find yourself standing at the rail above a hot spring, looking down into water so blue it does not seem real, with the steam drifting past your face and the crowd murmuring around you, remember what that color is. It is not decoration. It is a warning written in light, the color of water hot enough to have killed more than 20 people who stood exactly where you are standing and believed, for one step, that the rules were for somebody else. Colin Scott's sister stood on solid ground and watched the park take her brother in the time it takes to reach out a hand. David Kerwin's last act on this earth was an act of love, and the water did not care. The bison that made the news never wanted the encounter, and the lake that drowned its swimmers never made a wave. Nothing in Yellowstone hates you. Nothing in it is hunting you. It is older than the roads, older than the country that drew a border around it, and it is supremely, perfectly indifferent. A 2 million acre machine of heat and cold and muscle that will let 4 million people a year walk through it untouched, and then, without malice and without mercy, collect from the one who forgot where they were. You will probably be fine. Almost everyone is. You will drive the loop and see the geyser and the canyon and the bears, and you will go home with photos that do not do it justice, and the only thing that will burn you is the sun. But the margin between your trip and the other kind is not luck, and it is not fences, because out there, mostly, there are none. The margin is you, paying attention, in a place that has spent 150 years proving what happens the moment somebody doesn't. The steam will be rising off those basins again tomorrow morning, the way it has for thousands of years, whether anyone drives up to watch it or not. The bison will be in the valley. The lake will be cold under its shine. The most beautiful, dangerous place in America opens its gates at dawn. Just remember, before you drive through them, that everything on the other side is real.